Today is Thursday, March 23rd, 2017. My name is Elissa Kaplan, and it is my honor and privilege today to interview Esther Sadeh for the Jewish Historical Society of Fairfield County. We are in Esther's home in Stamford at 4 Doral Road. And good afternoon, Esther.
Good afternoon. I'm very happy.
So, Esther, thank you for being here today. Have you signed the permission form?
Yes, I have.
And do you understand the permission
And
form?
I understand the permission form. You can do whatever you want.
Thank you very much. Please tell us your name.
My name is Esther Sadeh.
And what?
You will want to know when I was born.
But I want to know what people call you.
Esther?
Just like the Queen in the Purim story.
Like the Queen in Purim.
When were you born?
April 17, 1937.
So this is a big year for you, right?
You better believe it. Very soon.
I know, and your birthday, I think, is, you're going to have a matzah birthday cake, right? For Pesach.
Yeah, always.
So, Esther, tell us where you were born.
I was born in Nahariya, which is a town, now it's almost a city, in the very north of Israel. It's very close to the Lebanese border, and it was in Palestine. And it was not even included in the state of Israel. We were, when the division was made, we were out of the state, surrounded by Arab villages.
So you were in what country? So Nahariya was in
Palestine.
Palestine.
Palestine. I was born in Palestine.
So it would have been part of Jordan when
No, Lebanon.
Lebanon. That's
Very
right.
close. It's on the shore, on the Mediterranean.
That's right. Esther, when did you come to the United States?
In 1966.
So a lot happened before that, right?
I can't believe it.
Tell us who your parents were.
My parents were Erich and Bella Zorn. My father was very well read. Of course, he read Mein Kampf. And in 1933, he decided that Jews have to leave Germany. And he didn't just decide, he left.
Where in Germany were your parents living?
Dinslaken, which is in the north. And he went to Israel. And since he had no knowledge of agriculture, he went to Nahalal and learned. He had to know everything to learn from the beginning. And one of his very exciting things was that he was learning to plow, and stood guard on him was Moshe Dayan, because it was very dangerous. There were Arabs all over the place. But there was one bad thing in Israel: there were no ladies, not enough. And he was a ladies' man, so he went back to Germany to pick up a wife. And he chose my mom, who was born in Estenfeld, which is it's in Bavaria near Munich. And while being there, he convinced her sisters, his brothers, and many other young people who, when he spoke, they listened.
What year are we talking about?
They all left in 30, they arrived wherever in 34.
34. And how did your father, who's originally from northern Germany, find this southern German gal? Find your mother. How did he find her? She was in Bavaria.
Oh, they knew that Erich is coming to look for a wife very fast. And cousins and distant cousins, they liked him. He was good looking and they were interested. So he had to pick, and he picked her.
Wow.
And convinced very many, there are many, many people in the United States now that wouldn't be, if it wouldn't be for my father. And then when we came in 66, they sponsored us, because if you come as an immigrant, you need a sponsor. And many went to Israel. His brothers and my mother's sisters, they all came to Israel. And it all was in 44, 45.
And they had survived the war.
They had, and whoever didn't come, the older people, unfortunately, couldn't really leave.
So tell us about the people in your mother and father's family who survived. Where did they go from Germany during the war? Where were they taken?
Well, some went to the United States, many went, all the brothers and sisters went to Israel, and some went to Argentina. Wherever they could go, they went.
Did you have any family left in Germany during the war?
Yes, unfortunately. Unfortunately, a big part, most of the people, these were all young people. They were all in their 20s. And all the ones that were older stayed. And as a matter of fact, his mother came to visit Israel. I call it Israel, it was Palestine, when I was born in 1937. And they begged her to stay. But their situation was so difficult there. They lived in a house, a little house made out of corrugated metal. And she said, how can I, and what will we eat? They planted what they ate. And they said, I was already born, so 3 can eat, you can eat also. She went back.
What did your grandparents do for a living in Germany?
Oh,
Do you know? No, okay.
No, they were not allowed to do much. They do merchant. How do you say that?
Yes, merchants,
Yeah,
businesses,
yeah.
store owners.
My mother's parents had a shop that sold clothes and fabric and everything, and that's where she worked. But my father's parents, I know. My father didn't talk much. He talked politics. He never talked about family things. All I know about my family comes from my mom.
Oh, okay. He sounds very Israeli. He was in the right place. Talking a lot of politics.
Yeah.
Do you know anything about your parents' wedding?
When
Did they get married in Germany
No,
or in
no.
Palestine?
He came and right away arranged for her. He couldn't wait. And a month after, they shopped for what they needed. Of course, most my mom's dresses ended up being Purim clothes. She had no idea, and he couldn't advise her, but they bought everything, put it together, and a month after that she came. And right away, they got married in Haifa in a hotel that was owned by cousins.
And the rabbi married them.
And the rabbi married them. They had a wedding. I wasn't there.
Not yet.
Not yet.
So your father had some very strong beliefs. Tell us about his political beliefs. You said he liked to talk about politics.
Yeah. He read a lot. And not only, of course, the book Mein Kampf convinced him, but then he saw something that I couldn't research, but I will, that in the newspaper it said that communists tried to flee a prison and were shot. And he saw them being shot from a hotel window, and he saw that they were chased, they didn't flee. So that I think was I could never figure it out from where and from when and verify it, but I'm going to now. And he said, that's it. And he left. And if he decides something, he just did it.
So when he got to Palestine, who were the political people he aligned himself with, or did he?
Not really. He was not involved, not in anything. He was a member of the Haganah.
He was in the Haganah.
Yeah. But
that's not the Irgun. So.
Not the Irgun. The Irgun, that was Dov's thing when he was in the movie Exodus. I have to put it in.
Yes,
he was an Irgunist. And so he did what everybody did. And since he was very methodical, he had to learn agriculture. And as soon as he brought my mom, they went on a honeymoon to see Israel. And he showed her farms. And she said right away, I'm not having cows, I'm not having chickens, I'm not anything like that, only vegetable and fruit. And he did what she said.
So you were born in 1937. What was it like when you were a little girl in Israel?
Wonderful. For little girls, it was a dream world. I grew up, they settled finally in a German-speaking town, Nahariya, which was a different way. It was not a kibbutz, which my mom didn't like. It was a moshav. And they bought land, big quantities, and people could buy their own parcel of land, as much money as they had, and do agriculture. And they were all, and I have to say, doctors and lawyers and people like that. And they all became farmers. They chose one doctor to be our doctor. And then when the town became a little larger, the chicken doctor became half a doctor, and his wife took all the chicken. I thought that was really funny. And the guy who had a very important position was Dr. Wolf, who was responsible to check if they used too much water, because water was in little supply. So he had a big job, and his wife complained because under his overall, which he wore to work, he always wore a white shirt and a tie to feel good. And she complained because she had to wash it.
And iron it. So, oh my.
Yeah.
Were your parents religious Jews? Talk to us
My
a little bit
mother
about
kept kosher. And we had a little synagogue with a wonderful rabbi who let us do anything. As a matter of fact, if on Shabbat I was on my bike and tried to cross the street so not to see him, he said, Esther, I'd rather you say Shabbat Shalom, I know you ride your bike. So it was very, very, very free. But nice, a nice little synagogue. And that rabbi married me too.
What was his name? Do you know? Do you remember?
Keller. Dr. Keller.
Yeah. That's right, you were in the German.
A very nice man. And we go again on a white shirt. His wife complained that for my wedding, she had to buy him a new white shirt.
Very
Then my mom was in Chevrat Kadisha. They were. But when I started my household and I said, do I have to keep kosher? My mom said, no, I'll eat whatever you cook.
Very wise woman. What was your favorite holiday as a child, Jewish holiday?
Purim.
Oh, your name, yes.
Purim. My favorite holiday, and on Purim in 1953, I had my first dance with my husband.
It's a very special day for you.
Yeah, and that was, one of the things we had to talk now in synagogue, how to convince people to come to synagogue. I said, dance. We had every Friday night, instead of synagogue, we danced. And what I have to add here, that after the Holocaust, Israel, very much, young Israelis didn't want to go to synagogue. So I learn now about synagogue. I think it's a good thing, but we didn't go. We danced.
Sounds lovely. You mentioned that your parents grew vegetables. Was your mom a good cook?
She cooked. She didn't like to cook, I have to say. But this is a little interesting also, because when World War II started, the British, who were we were a British mandat. They were concerned that we will not have food and things, and they had a big meeting in Tel Aviv, and my father went there, and they asked them to make seeds so that they wouldn't depend on seeds coming from overseas. And in Nahariya, a few people, together with my father, really put their mind on it. I have to say here, that first they wanted to grow vegetable and sell, but the competition from the Arabs around was too big, and very inexpensive vegetable from Lebanon. So then they decided to do seeds and develop, not plain, these were all people, thinking people, to develop a kind of vegetable that fits the soil and the temperature of Israel. Nothing that comes from Europe. And that was very successful, and until today, my father, he taught himself and he had other people help him, developed a pepper which was yellow, the yellow pepper, and it was called yellow pepper Nahariya. And it's until today all over the world. It's the yellow, not the dark green, the light yellow. They figured that the dark green rots in the temperature of Israel, doesn't hold as good, and so they made the yellow pepper.
So when you see a yellow pepper, you think of your father?
Exactly. And we helped because it was done by hand. The pepper gets yellow on the vine, and then you open it when it's good and take the seeds off and dry the seeds on a sheet in the sun. That's how we made our pepper seeds.
It sounds like you were on your way to becoming a botanist. Do you have brothers and sisters?
I had a sister, 6 years younger, and she's now in Israel.
Did you go to any bar mitzvahs in your town? Were there any?
One bar mitzvah. We had one cousin who had a bar mitzvah, and that was in the same hotel my parents got married in. And I don't think I tell you what we learned there. We were two cousins, and we were three cousins together, and he was a couple of years older than us, and at noon when all the grown-ups were resting after the moment, he taught us the facts of life. And I might say, yeah, it was funny because he's ashamed of it now. He taught it wrong. So wrong. And it's too funny. He said how you make a baby, but he said, my parents did it once because he was single. Your parents, Esther, did it twice. So that was, I think it's funny.
Lots of scientists in your family. Tell us about your education. What was school? When did you start school?
I started school in Nahariya. It was a little village school, country school. We had lots of fun there. I very much enjoyed. Unfortunately, I have a learning disability, and I couldn't. This is another thing. We started speaking German in Nahariya. There was no ulpan, and so until 2 years I spoke only German, and then they brought a teacher who spoke German and Hebrew and taught the kids in the morning and the grown-ups at night. So this is how they learned, and the school was fine. We had a good time at school.
It wasn't a one-room schoolhouse.
No.
It was bigger than that.
It was already bigger. And and so until today, I have to say the principal of the school, which was a Rabbi too, and his name was Riv, he realized that I learned to read a year later and I couldn't spell. And he said, but I did many nice things. And so he said, one day we will know why. I put a show in my class that was shown to the whole school, a Bible show, all kinds of things. And so after 6th grade, they sent me to a better school because they wanted me to have a better education.
And was that in another town?
This was in Haifa. And I had to leave home, and I lived with my uncle and aunt. And that was very hard on me, because nobody knew. I was a good student, but it was hard for me. So that's how it was. And then one math teacher who put me in the extra top math class, ruined it for me because the next year that class was taught by a professor who wouldn't, that doesn't belong here what I'm saying now, it doesn't matter, that wouldn't take an answer if it's not right, and I write numbers wrong. I say 8 and I write 9, so he failed me. Then I left that school. Then I went to a girls' school, which there I learned art and sewing and all kinds of things, and I had fights with the teachers because I thought they were not very good.
Yeah, it sounds like you were an out-of-the-box thinker even then. Are you friends with any of your early childhood?
Oh, yes.
Early school
As a matter of fact, my elementary class, we had now a reunion when I come back, and the reunion also started a little because of me, because everybody wanted to see me. And I can't visit, they were 30, now they are not. And so I said, if you want to see me, let's get together. And it started a tradition of reunions when Esther comes to visit.
How lovely.
And that is, I'm looking so much forward to that. We had in the beginning some teachers there too. And once they even asked, I don't know if that belongs. I miss things that are important for Israel, and I talk about myself. But they asked the teacher, why was Esther never punished? And they said, do you realize what Esther did for our class? So how could we punish her? So it was really wonderful for me. But I have to tell you, school, that's more important. The illegal immigration.
Oh, tell us about that.
Our school was on a little hill, and the boats came to Nahariya. It was on the Mediterranean, and they built something so the boats could land, and they had the whole young generation, they were there to help. And mostly they came at night, so the Brits wouldn't see them. But sometimes a boat came during the day. And from school we saw it. We saw, oh! And then we were all sent down. The principal came and said, all down to the beach, mix with the new people, so you will confuse the Brits. And we did. And I had my bike there. And my father was there. All the people from Nahariya helped to not only the Haganah soldiers, but to get them and take them to their homes. And my father couldn't get out because he didn't have his identification. So he sent me to get the identification. But my bike was, and the Brits surrounded it. So what does Esther do? I cried. So one nice soldier said, well, I don't know how I communicated with him, but he put my bag over, I went home, got the identification, came back, and then we took 3, it went like a charm. I cannot remember all the details, I read about it now. And we took 3 ladies to our home for the night. And we had sandwiches for dinner, and it was wonderful. But the next morning, the Brits came to do house-to-house search. 2 of the ladies went to the woods in the back of our house, where my father always hid his gun. 1 lady was pregnant and didn't want to go, and they took her. And I cried because I liked her and talked to her. It was very sad. They took her back to, I think, Mauritius or whatever it was at that time. So that was our immigration.
So you played an active role in the Aliyah bet.
Yes, yes.
How old were you then? About 8 or 9?
I was. That's why I wanted to have the date.
Oh.
I was 11.
11.
Or 9 or 11.
Okay, that's close enough.
Doesn't matter. I was a little girl.
So.
But we all did. All the children participated. I have to say also now that was, okay, I mixed up. We were bombed in World War II by the Turkish.
Oh, so, okay, going back a little, okay.
Is this going back? Yes, it's going back. We were British mandat, and they bombed us. and I had a piece of shrapnel from that mountain. My father went, of course, after the bomb fell and took it and brought it to us. And of course, my mom was angry, but I have it. It's sitting there until today. I have it. And so that was that.
Esther, you've had a front row seat in the events of history.
Yeah.
So soon, tell us about the Declaration of Independence and what led up to that and how and your role.
Yeah, that was fabulous. We all knew that they vote in the UN, and we all hoped to be a state, and we danced. In Israel, the celebration is not so much singing but dancing.
Did you have a radio? Were you listening to the radio?
Yes, only radio, no TV. My first TV was when I came to the United States. And we danced in the street and we were so happy, but we were not part of Israel.
That's right.
Because the border was differently. And then very short after that, when they declared Israel in 1948, we were under siege. We were surrounded. We couldn't go, we couldn't get our food, we couldn't get anything. And then the kids went on, we had to eat what we grew. And I remember vividly, school children, we went to the beach and they taught us which shells chicken can eat so that we can have the eggs. We did not eat the chicken, we ate the eggs only. And so I know until today which shells chicken can eat. And it was, children didn't feel it. We were happy. And I also failed to say, which I think is important, when we were bombed, we had no house, we were not safe, so we went to sleep. My father was guarding, and we went to sleep in the kitchen of our neighbors who already had a complete house. So in the evening we went to sleep there so we would be safe.
Right, because you had the mental house. When did your home become part of Israel, or how did you get back into Israel from?
We were freed by soldiers. Not in the very beginning of the war, but at some point. We had, for instance, that is an interesting story. One of the boats that came as an immigrant boat was the boat Chana Senesh. And then when we were in separated from the country, this particular boat brought us matzot and wine and ammunition over the sea. And that was a nice touch. Of course, the matzot fell in the water, but, and then, I don't know exactly when, at some point, few troops of Israeli soldiers rescued us. They broke through, they got rid of the Arab villages, and while we were there, we had two machine guns that were put on bicycles, and they were driven to one end of town and shot, and driven to the other end of town and shot, and we knew it, even the kids knew it, that we are fooling the Arabs, and we survived.
Your father was in the war?
He was not in a war. He was all the time defending Nahariya. That was just as important. He was not a fighting, he was too old for that by that time. The fighting people were young people. And there is a, by the way, story that I found tonight on the internet. Yechiam, which is a town that is close to Nahariya, was also under siege. And from Nahariya, they sent a convoy with food and ammunition up there, and it was attacked. And they said this was the biggest defeat Israel ever had in the war. Most of the people were killed, and I knew them. There was a brother and a sister that had a sister in my class. And it was on Shabbat, and this I remember well, because usually the town we had from 2 to 3, from 1 to 3, nobody did noise. Everybody, that was rest time, holy. And one Shabbat I hear boom, 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 and I go to my father. Why are the neighbors making noise? It's resting time. And he said, this is shooting. And then, of course, I was curious, and we went all to the center of time. And that was the first time I saw it. That was horrible, horrible. And I read tonight that it was the biggest defeat Israel had in any war. And it had to be from Naria.
And you were there. So when you finished high school, you went into the army?
You bet.
So tell us what it was like to finish high school and then get prepared and
I really wanted to get married, but the army at this time didn't take married ladies. So, and nobody would not go to the army, that's the biggest shame. So we went to the army, Dov to his, I to mine. We did basic training. We escaped from a hole Dov came to the hole in the fence, and everybody said, Esther, somebody's waiting for you. And I went out, and they found out. And they tried to find out, the commander came. We knew a girl went out of the cave, and we are going to figure out who she was. And they asked, was it you, was it you, was it you? And they stopped, and they said, it's too late, we will not figure out today. And at the end of basic training, she said, Esther, we knew it was you. It could only have been you, but the hole was fixed. So that was my basic training, and then I went to a very desired course of 9 months drafting to the engineering corps. They really handpicked people. That was very, very nice, because you learned with engineers, and I still have my drawings that I made now. And then we worked. And that's how I got involved in the 6-Day War. Because in the 6-Day War there was a need, to build small prison camps. And that was the engineering corps. And to then fold all the roads. Because after the 6-Day War, they made Israel leave. What, you want to say something? Okay. That's okay. They wanted to leave the Sinai for the Arabs with no roads. So that was an engineering corps job. And Dov, who was in the Armor Corps, his job was to check all the guns and all the tanks that were left behind and see which one are good to send them back to Israel to be reused, and if they were not used, to explode them. So the Arabs, the Egyptians cannot use them.
So let's go back a little bit. So how did you meet Dov?
On Purim.
Oh, you said that. And tell us about that.
How was it? There was always a soccer game Saturday afternoon, and one day Dov, who was a Holocaust survivor basically, he was in camp, in a labor camp, and got out of there with the help of a nice man, because his mother was sent to Auschwitz.
So where was Dov from originally?
Czechoslovakia, Bratislava. Mm-hmm. And yeah, you too. And so he couldn't survive, and he was on a list to be sent with his mother, and that guy who was a friend of her apparently got him off the list.
So he was a child.
He celebrated his 6th birthday in camp.
Do you know the
name? And we later
met
the teacher that taught him there.
Do you know the name of the camp?
Yes, I know.
If it comes to you.
Yeah, because I know. I have pictures from that camp. You know the name?
Novaki.
Novaki.
Okay.
You speak out loud.
That's fine. It's good to have Tamar in the background so that we can have answers to questions. So how did he get to Israel?
And to Israel, then an aunt hid him in the mountains, and he ate only mushrooms, and then after the war his mother came, and they spent some years, and he made youth aliyah, and came to Israel by himself. And he was first in kibbutz Ruchama, and when his mother remarried, and they came to Israel and wanted him to go to school. Everybody believed in education. And so they took him out from the kibbutz and brought him to Nahariya. And then on the football field came this handsome guy, and I had a bet with a friend. How long will it take you to have you among your admirers? It's silly, but it was an ice cream bet. And so I said, we went to a Purim party, and I needed his shoe because I was half man, half woman. Could have taken the shoe of my father. But he said, I bring you my shoe, but I take you to the party. And that was my whole idea. And so we danced, and that was the beginning and the end.
So he was an athlete. So football, that was soccer, right?
Soccer, no football. He was an athlete. He played basketball and volleyball. And he jumped hurdles. As a matter of fact, my father, everything had to be with food. So the fence surrounding my parents' lot was grapes. And dogs stole grapes from there. So everything had to be food. There was not much like beautiful tree, with the exception of a palm tree. And
so did you, how long did it take for the two of you to get married?
well, after the army. We went to the army together, and after the army we got married.
So that was a couple of years, 2 years, I think, 3 years maybe? After the army?
Yeah, in 58 we got married.
Oh, okay.
That I should know.
Right. And tell us a story from your wedding.
That was an Israeli wedding. No invitation. It was written in the local newspaper, which was just a sheet. But it was always on Tuesday, and because the whole town will come to the wedding, stores were closed. All stores were closed. There was no cake, there was only finger food that all the aunts made. And on the wedding day, Dov and I collected the cakes and the cookies. We rode on it. He pulled me on a wagon, and we made fun. And aren't you getting married? You shouldn't see each other. We do it our way. And it was wonderful. Outside, only soda and finger foods. 2 armies came, 2 truck armies came, one from his camp and one from my camp. The photographers, the camera was broken, so I had very little pictures.
And it was your original rabbi, right, who married you?
The original rabbi. The whole town came, and as a matter of fact, we had a small apartment that my father rented for us in Haifa. And the only taxi, Nahariya had 1 taxi, was supposed to pick us up after the wedding and bring us to Haifa. No buses at night. And instead of him, his wife came on a bicycle. We all were on bicycles. And said he can't come. Chava is giving birth and he has to bring her to the hospital. That takes precedence. So my parents went to sleep, and Dov and I went to our favorite bench, not far from my house. A neighbor who went to walk the dog said, "What are you doing here? You got married today." And the next day the whole town knew. Esther and Dov spent their wedding night on their bench. It was like a small town thing, but it was fun.
That sounds lovely.
I have to think of it in the war.
Well, let me ask you about. We'll come to that. What did? how did you end up earn a living after you got married?
Well, he went to the Technion and was an engineer, and that's how he earned his living. And I right away after the army, if you went to the drafting course in the army, you were snapped. As a matter of fact, I made more money than he did as an engineer. But then we had babies.
So tell us how many children you have?
2.
And what are their names?
One is Amnon. He calls himself Eric now, and he's in Israel with his family. And the other is Tamar, which is here. And we don't say when we were born.
Yes.
And we had 2 little children, but Dov was not happy with his work. He didn't like the engineering. He built in distillation towers for chemical company. And he wanted to go more where the decisions are made and get an MBA. And I felt I cannot stop him. He married young, we had children young, and there was no MBA in Israel at that time, and no evening studies. So, since he was born in Czechoslovakia, there was free. He could get a visa right away. So we sold our house, bought a one-way ticket, and came here. And he studied. He got a stipend to NYU and did his MBA and was very happy. But we planned to go back so the children can still start school in Israel. And we missed that because we had none. So we got stuck.
So were you living in New York City? When he was in school at NYU, were you living in New York?
Yeah, in Queens, in Jackson Heights. And we had to learn, I had to go shopping by looking at the pictures on the cans. I was petrified that I buy pet food because I didn't know any animal named pet. So, but we managed, and I learned English, and the kids went to school, and we even sent my son, not Tamar, to Hebrew school. But since he spoke Hebrew, he was disturbed and jumped out of the window. And then he couldn't continue Hebrew school. He was bored.
So you joined a synagogue
in Jackson Heights, yeah. That's what we did, and then Dov got a job at Pepsi.
So is that how you got to this area?
Because he commuted all the time, and somebody said it's silly, move. So we checked where we went to school here, and we moved to Greenwich, not knowing what we are getting into. But it wasn't bad. They got a good education.
Living in Greenwich, so and
that was not very clever. We didn't know what Greenwich was. I could have done live in a place where there are Jews, and I didn't. My kids had to suffer for it. I had no idea. I was told a good school. I didn't read much English, so I didn't know.
So how did you get to Stanford? Here we are in Stanford. How did you get here?
We couldn't afford a house in Greenwich. So we bought a house in Stanford. And it was good.
And when was that? In the it was after the 6-Day War.
25 years ago. It was about 25 years ago.
So 25 years ago.
And it was the 56 war. My mom spoke.
Yeah.
Right.
And I like Stanford, and it's good. And not everything in life is good, but really, when I think about it, when you read Marjorie Morningstar, I have to say, much, much better in Israel. I know all these things were strange to me, but I didn't know. So I put my kids not in a very easy situation.
But they learned English quickly. And
they survived. We are all survivors.
And you have lots of family back in Israel.
And we send them every summer to Israel to be with their grandparents. As a matter of fact, my parents said that they saw their grandkids more than those who lived in Israel. Because every summer I shipped them over there. And yeah.
So, did you work when you were here in Greenwich and Stanford? Did you?
I couldn't read. I should have. But I really am not good in reading English until this day. And since I like to read, first Dov read to me, and I drove, that's why I'm a good driver. And as soon as books came, I read more than anybody because I can listen to books all day long. But that I'm not comfortable. I cannot fill out forms and this, so I did. And Dov made a good living. We were fine. And as a matter of fact, I worked a little bit with him. And since he traveled a lot, he had very interesting work. He spoke 8 languages.
Oh my.
And he did privatization in East Europe when the wall came down. So we had an office in Budapest, and we spent our time 2 weeks here, 2 weeks there. And guess who came with him all the time? Yeah. In the beginning, we changed our business class ticket to 2 other class tickets, and then they even agreed to pay for me because I speak German well. And German is Dov's least favorite language, not my favorite either. But I hate, and I did the brochures for him. So then I never had a real salary, but it covers my trip. And this will be traded all the time.
So I just want to go back to Israel a little bit. So you were very small child. We were a child in the War of 48. You were involved in 56. Tell us about the 6-Day War again. You talked a little bit about it.
The 6-Day War was, well, Dov wanted first to go to study. I don't know if it's here, where you go study and then you go to the army, so that we can get married earlier. And but he was called back. All the people that were already in the Technion studying had to be called back because there were rumors that there will be a war. That was sad for us, but it was. And so we all went into the army. And shortly before the war, for instance, just to show again how friendly the army was, Dov had to recruit trucks. And trucks were recruited with their drivers. So in order to get them, you have to do it at night. So he had to drive all night long from house to house to get the trucks that we needed for the war. And he came by my camp and said, "Could you come with me?" And guess what? I was released, and it was so friendly. And I think we never realized any danger. The only time that there was a danger, his camp was in Beersheba and mine in Tel Aviv. And one day the road from Tel Aviv to Beersheba was blocked by a truck with cabbage, and they killed everybody who came down. And Dov had to go back home, but one more kiss, and he left late. And I didn't know he was one of the first cars stopped from going through. So at that point we said we have to get married. But we didn't realize that it's dangerous. That was the one night that I was worried about him. And there was no cell phones or anything like that. Although the telephone operator in my camp, I said, try, reach him. And she tried, and she finally reached him. And so, but when you live in a situation like this, I say Israel is the safest place ever.
That's right. So, tell us a story about celebrating the end of the 6-Day War. Were you part of that? Or you must
Oh,
have
we
been.
were happy. We were, but there was a sad thing about it, because we conquered the Sinai and we had to leave it. Or we had to go back and leave everything. So that's, and there was not really celebration. We were happy the war is over, and happy there were not too many casualties, but not that there were celebrations.
Right, so you were, right, and then he was blowing up the roads in the Sinai, so that was,
Yeah. And we went back to our regular life.
what was it like living in Israel in the 70s?
I didn't anymore.
Then
We
that's
left
when you left.
66.
Oh, you left 66, that's right, I'm sorry, you did. So you
But
were-
I know all about it because my friends were there and we were in touch. And as a matter of fact, firsthand, my cousin, who I lived with when I went to Haifa to school, and he was like a brother to me, I had no brother. He was in the Tamar. Yesterday I knew it. In the very select fighting group, Mossad, it's called Mossad. And this was a tough war, you know, we all know. And he started to fight in one place, and then his troop was transferred from, where did he start? He was he was transferred to the Galil. He was then finally transferred with his soldiers to Jerusalem. So he fought in all fronts and lost almost everything. And in Israel, the commander goes personally to the home of the parents to pay his condolences. And that was too tough for him. And about a year after the war, he changed his life. He just didn't take it. And he was like a brother to me, so that was the worst thing that happened to me. The first worst thing that happened to me.
So on a totally different subject, although you talked a little bit about it, you were involved in drafting and you're very artistic. What do you like to do in your spare time?
Paint. I like to paint.
So tell us.
And I went to the art student. I was a commercial. What happened to me in the army, the drafting was not so exciting for me, and I then moved to work with an artist who designed all the things. That was fun, and that was the work then that I did when I started working. I worked for an asbestos cement company, which is very bad today, and I did all the brochures and all the exhibits. It was fun work. Why did I start saying that?
I asked you about your painting.
Yeah, and I liked painting always. And when I came here, what I did, I went to the Art Student League in Manhattan. And I painted and painted, and I thought maybe, but it was the commercial art here was so very, very different from what I did. I wrote my letters and I did everything that it was maybe too much to learn, and as I said, I wasn't very comfortable learning. So I still did all the paintings in my house, and I organized in my children's school an art exhibit for children, which they keep until today, because that lets children who are not the best students shine. And so then I did things.
Quite a lot.
Not enough.
Speaking of children, tell us about your grandchildren. How many grandchildren do you have?
That was the best. That was, I enjoyed them. I did things with them. That, as a matter of fact, my granddaughter wrote about it, that grandma did things with us in her house. They could do anything they wanted as long as it's not dangerous. So she wrote, I learned how to do by myself a grandma because I never had a grandma. So I spent lots of time, and I have to say, my daughter let me have them for many, many weekends. And the most fun thing, I mean, they never had to go to sleep. We spent the nights on the floor, on blankets, watching movies. And she wrote about me something, and she wrote, Grandma would say, if you can have fun, why go to sleep? So I had a wonderful relationship with both my grandkids, and they are both very artistic, so are my children. And my grandson is the top. He studies art, they paint. My son even blames me for him being a plastic surgeon, because I took them to museums that we always had. I liked the Metropolitan, and they liked the natural history. So it was 1 for 1. And they learned to like art.
Tell us the names of your grandchildren. What are their names?
Danielle is the girl, and William is the boy.
And where are they living these days?
They both, Danielle finished Yale and is now in Washington, studying for, now I will say it wrong.
JDMSFS.
JDMFS.
MSFS.
And my grandson is still in college. And they are both very involved in Israel.
Where is he in school? Where is he? He's in Yale. Okay.
My daughter went there, and they went there, and they love it. And Tamar is very involved in the Jewish organization at Yale, and they are doing good things for Israel. As a matter of fact, Tamar, I'll say it wrong, but they are really Yale for Israel, and it's important in the colleges to do that. And they went when she still was at Yale, she took kids, not necessarily Jews, to Israel to see and love the country. And she just now came back from a trip from her school now that they went, Arab and Israelis, to Israel. And the nicest thing, I got an email now that they went to a party, a finishing party, and after the party they went to a house of an Arab to celebrate. And then they started dancing, and Danielle danced with a Lebanese to an Israeli song. She did not know how they know these songs. A real nice song. So that has brotherhood in it and hope in it, and so we have to have our hope in the young people.
For sure we do. Just one other question that's really totally different.
Dylan.
Dylan. Oh, I forgot Dylan.
Tell us about Dylan.
Thank you. Dylan is now 3 years old. My son, they had some difficulties and had no children. And finally, we got a Dylan that is 3 years old now and in Israel.
I was going to say, but he's already enrolled in Yale, right?
Now with him I Skype. And we do Purim. And I have now Purim puppets that I do with him, and he takes to school. And he speaks now only Hebrew. I read him books in English. I try to keep the English up for him. How did I forget him? Thank you, Tamar. He's adorable.
Speaking of Skyping, what's the most amazing invention of your lifetime?
Invention?
Yeah, something that didn't exist when you were a child.
That I found things on Google. I don't have to know anything. I found pictures of the illegal immigration boat. I found pictures of the convoy to Yechiam and description, so I don't have to remember anything. It's all written there, and in Hebrew. That's my latest.
So tell us, what were the most important things that Israel gave you?
No. the best childhood anybody can have. The best growing up, the best time in the army, my whole background, everything I am and I know. And it was good. It was, even though we had little family in Nahariya, the whole town were my uncles and aunts. That's how we called them. And when I think about it, couldn't have been better.
And what has America given you?
Now I speak English.
Beautifully.
I learned, because I didn't go to college, unfortunately. And I read books. And they were not, as a matter of fact, books in Israel was very hard, because I had a point in time when I finished all the books until 5th grade, and the librarian didn't want to let me go to 6th grade. There were a limited number of books. They don't translate every book. So my English reading gave me a window to the world. I go to every book club I can. I read every book I can. I listen to. So I'm already on the next book.
Good, good. Is there anything that I haven't asked you about that you want to talk about? Esther, thank you very much for your time today and your beautiful story and this wonderful interview.
Thank you very, very much. Was my father's ashtray because he smoked, and my mom threw it out. He was allowed to smoke only outside, and I took it and I loved it, and I made this to bring to him. Unfortunately, he died on the way. I brought it back, but I also painted it.
Did your kids? Did
I loved it so much.
Did they not? Are you sure?
What is this?
I made this, it's short because he was little, so he can see and he could read Dylan for his 2nd birthday. And he says, happy birthday to you, and he loved it. He was sitting there, and it's from the whole family. Granddaughter wanted to paint or draw, and she said, I can't make the heads good. So I told her, make bodies, and we take a photograph of a head. And these are all bodies that she drew.
It was fun, but as I said,
But she was little, and we used it all the time to make birthday cards. We never bought birthday cards.
and we didn't have anything.
Okay.
His father.
In the wedding dress, that's Dove's parents. I'm going to get a close-up of
These are
it.
his parents and his mother. And this is the aunt that kept him in the mountains.
That's right.
And his grandparents were shot on the way to also join them in the mountains.
And who is this woman here?
This is his grandma. And they say Tamar looks like her. His Dov's grandma.
Right.
This is Tamar's grandma. Dov's mother, Tamar's mother. They say that she looks like her.
Life in Stanford.
I think that
Now that I
my wife before him
In Will's bar mitzvah, he was shorter than his sister, and he didn't like it. He was very upset. So now he grew to be 6'4", and then he picks me up there.
See, the attraction, why did you work in America?
That was at the bar mitzvah that we went from a family, and somebody took a picture. I think that was the last time that he went any place. Then I liked the picture. You can see. Yeah. These are my mother's parents and my children. And we even have a grandfather who wore, this is a great grandfather. I keep this like, where should I put it? I have no idea. he was in a war, I don't know what, a German something war, but he was a soldier. And you're talking near 16.
All the way up here, right?
Rikudei Am, we dance. And that is Yom Ha'atzmaut. Every Yom Ha'atzmaut we would dance in the streets.
This is you when you were a baby, taken in Israel, right?
Yeah. And they would call it, my parents called it, to my subject, because I would stand in there and talk.
What's this palm tree down here at the bottom?
This is my parents' home. You don't see the home and palm tree. The name of, whenever a child is born in Israel, you plant a tree, because trees are needed. And her name is Tamar, and Tamar is a palm. So that was her tree. And this was my son's tree. Every time a child is born, they plant a tree.
I point to little Dylan again.
Little Dylan, Esther, and Big Will. I think that's funny picture.
Who are all these people?
This is Will, Tamar, Daniel graduating from Yale, Esther, Amnon, Dylan, and Michal.
Beautiful.